again, everybody. So we're back again to answer some more of your questions in this question and answer part 2. We're going to answer those questions that were asked that pertain to expediting, kind of general expediting questions. So that's what we're going to tackle today. So the first question comes from Dad the Jedi, and he asks, do you haul expedited freight only, or do you ever haul general freight? And if you do get general freight loads, do they pay less than expedited?
When Heather's doing her load kind of breakdowns throughout the week, she'll talk about it being a general freight load. Typically when we talk about that, it's maybe we're just hauling automotive parts or just general commodity kind of stuff, whereas usually we're hauling high value items like hazmat or pharmaceuticals or something like that, DOD load. There are times where we do haul general freight loads that I guess you can call them LTL loads. They're smaller loads, but they still need to get there in a timely manner. Usually LTL freight is going to be, within a week, 4 to 5 days, somewhere around there, whereas a dedicated truck, it gets there a lot quicker. For the most part, all of our loads are expedited loads, stuff that has to get there as quick as possible. There is no time for pulling over and taking 10-hour breaks or stuff like that. It's always got to pick up and deliver. When customers request a straight track, a lot of times it might be just because it's cheaper than putting it on an 18-wheeler. It's a smaller load, so it'll fit in a smaller truck, so why not save money and put it on a smaller vehicle? It might not so much be expedited freight, but it has to get there in a timely manner still, but what they're hiring is a dedicated truck. Only their freight goes on our truck. No other, we don't stop anywhere else and pick up any other freight. Their shipment is the only thing that rides on our truck from pickup to delivery. So a lot of times that's really what expedited freight is dedicated service, one shipment per truck. So.
And to answer the second part of that question, do we get paid less for general freight versus expedited freight? Well, kind of like Jason said, it's pretty much all expedited freight that we do, even though we may say it's a general freight load. And with us, with our carrier, we are paid a set contracted rate per mile. So those loads, it doesn't matter what kind of load it is, we're paid the same on every load, and unless it's a specialty load. Now there are some loads we are paid a little differently on.
It pays like 8 cents more a mile on
right.
some loads, but and unless we're in a bad area, if there's a lot of trucks and not enough freight, a lot of times dispatch might be out there underbidding freight to get their trucks out of this area and back into the areas they need them in. And sometimes we'll get called with a load that might pay less than what we're used to, but not very often.
And those are called reduced rate runs or reduced rate loads.
Right.
But yeah, we don't get those very often.
Not very often.
No. I think just to name a couple places that has happened to us. It's happened to us in California before and Laredo. Those are really the only 2 areas that we've experienced. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other areas, but as far as our experience, that's where it's happened to us. Yeah. Our next question comes from Sandra, and she asks, my husband has his CDLs and I would like to get mine as well. Are there any rider programs for us so I can get used to driving the truck? Well, Sandra, we don't specifically know of any rider programs out there. I will tell you of one instance that we do know of, and it was with Expediter Services. There was a couple, the husband had his CDL, the wife had her permit. They were able to get on with Expediter Services to drive for them. And the way they worked it, from what I understand, I don't know all the particulars, is he was basically taking solo runs and she could only drive a certain amount of hours. Now, again, I don't know all the particulars or everything with that. that may be an option you may want to check out with Expediter Services directly. You may check out what they offer.
Other than them, yeah, we've really never heard of
heard of that.
Anything like that. And the main reason is we're independent contractors out here, and you know, it's not like company kind of things, you know, where people are paid as employees.
Right.
So I
where
think that kind of a trainer and a student. So I think that really is why you don't see that much of it in expediting. But they may be out there. You know, your best thing to do, check Expediter Services. Maybe they just still do that. Maybe not. Just call companies that are out there. You know.
Yeah, it's worth a shot.
Yeah, if you look on Expeditors online, there's a list of companies out there on there that you can check out, and it doesn't hurt to call, you know.
Right. I definitely think though, if there are any programs like that, you would definitely have to have at least your permit to be able to drive. If you don't, you wouldn't be able to ride with your husband without a permit and be able to drive the truck. You would at least have to have that. So that's really the first step you're going to have to do is get that permit. The next question comes to us from Jason. Looking into a school to obtain my CDL hazmat, is school worth it?
Me personally, I think it is. I have a cousin right now. He's 22, 23 years old, you know, young kid, wanted to get his CDL, and he lives out in California, so there weren't a lot of options. So I had recommended him checking out some of these places, do the schools. Now, one thing you got to consider when doing those is your first 9 months to a year, you're going to be doing some grunt work. You know, you're not going to make much money. You're going to be basically busting your butt, not making a lot of money, but you're going to be learning. I think the schooling and doing those contracts where you have to work with them for a year after is such a good investment for your career. You know, I'm sure you're going to be roughing it out for that first year, but the payoff after that 1 year, after you've completed that contract with them and fulfilled your contract and paid the schooling off, you know, the opportunities are endless, you know. Absolutely. So I think the schooling's a good idea. Just be prepared not to make much money, and be prepared to bust your butt, you know. My cousin, he's got like, I think, gosh, four more months. He's got 4 more months. He went with CR England, and what he told me was they're only 9 months. You only have to complete 9 months with them. So I mean, 9 months, and then you got the whole rest of your career ahead of you, you know. So I think it's definitely worth it.
Now, to clarify, what Jason's talking about is basically going through a carrier, getting trained by them, and then getting your CDL and everything
getting
through
your
them.
Class A, yep.
Now, there are separate just schools on their own that you can go and obtain a CDL where you're not going through a carrier to get your CDL.
There are. I don't.
Yeah, I think it's better price-wise to do it like what Jason is saying. Yeah. I've heard different people say different amounts that have gone to different schools, not talking about the carriers, but just flat out going to a school that trains you to get your CDL. I've heard anywhere from $2,000 up to $6,000.
Now those, that's a lot of money
It's a lot of money.
Now, if you got the money, you've been saving for a while, and you got the money set aside, yeah, I mean, it's still a good idea, you know. That's a lot of money to have to pay back, though, if you're going to have to take a loan. I think the best way to do it would be through a carrier-sponsored program. Yeah. Instead of paying the cash yourself. They do have those things out there. If you got the money set aside, at least with the carrier-sponsored places, you get experience along with it, you know, so you can take that experience and everything with you. You don't pay any money. One
thing with going through the carrier to get trained, you're basically going for your full Class A. As you know, in the straight trucks, you only need a B. So, I mean, not that that's a bad thing. It's a great thing to have an A, because you could, even if you got into a straight truck, didn't like it, maybe you want to go tractor trailer one day.
They got tractor trailer and expediting.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. So. But it kind of is going to depend on what you really want to do. You know, Jason's got his Class A. I got my Class B. I've thought about going and getting my Class A eventually.
It's an investment towards your future.
Yeah.
It's an investment towards your career.
I think it's definitely worth it for the training and the experience that you get. I think everybody should have some sort of experience before getting out here. Absolutely. Our next question comes from Gary, and he asks, I currently have a Class B license with air brakes. I want to go over the road solo and take my wife with me. She's not comfortable with driving. I can't find any companies who will hire solo Class B drivers. He will do the whole trucking school for a Class A if he has to, but was wondering if we know any companies that will hire a solo Class B driver.
This is probably one of our biggest questions we get most of the time is people wanting to do solo out here. And, you know, we've never done much research on it because everything we've always looked into is being a team. You know, when I first started doing research on expediting, you know, everybody was saying team was the best. Really, the expediting industry is almost ideal for husband and wives who come out here, you know, and that's what we were looking at. That's what I've done all my research on. But through the 4 years that we've been out here, you know, we meet drivers and stuff, and there's solo people out here, you know.
Absolutely.
There's solo guys. Yeah, there's solo owner operators. I even know a solo guy who owns his own, he got his own authority. He bids his own loads. He does loads for Panther, Bolt, all these other companies. And he's a solo guy. So, I mean, it's possible out there. Just, we don't know much about it. It's funny. I had a friend, his name was Cody. He ran solo for a while with Expediter Services, running for a company called Roadrunner. Well, that was a few months ago, and apparently recently they don't do solos anymore. So it's like, soon as I hear of a solo company and I start recommending people to call them, they don't do solo no more. They change. It changed. And a lot of companies are going to, they want teams. And I mean, in expediting, I understand because the stuff has to get there fast, you know, and if it's more miles than a solo can handle, then, you know, they're not going to be able to get that load covered if they don't have any teams in the area. So, and plus these trucks are so expensive, you know, $180,000 for our truck. You buy an owner buys a truck like that, he wants a team running it nonstop.
Make the most revenue possible.
Make the most revenue possible, you know. One thing I would recommend is on Expeditors Online in the blog section, there's Greg Huggins. He does a blog on there. He is a solo guy.
So knowledgeable. He's super knowledgeable.
Yeah, owner operator, owns his own truck, runs solo, and he's doing good. You know, I mean, read his blogs. Maybe you can learn something from him. We don't know any companies out there. The only thing I could recommend doing is just calling. You know, go on Expeditors Online, find a list of companies on there, and just get to calling them, you know, nonstop, just calling them and call. And surely there's companies still out there. They're getting smaller and smaller, though. That's about all we know on the solo part. Sorry, we don't know more about that. We've been doing team all our driving careers, so that's what we know.
Yeah. Our next question comes to us from Marcus. He says, how does the insurance work for expediting, or do you go through the company? So Marcus, I wasn't sure on if you were talking about health insurance or trucking insurance or commercial insurance. So I guess we'll answer it both ways. As far as health insurance, we are independent contractors, so we're not company drivers. Our carrier and most all carriers where you're going to be independent contractors, they do not offer health insurance. Now, they may offer something where you could get a discounted rate, but you're still getting it on your own. You're not actually going through the company like if you were on a regular 9-to-5 job and they offer health insurance and you get a discount because they have a big plan with an insurance company. So health insurance, you're pretty much responsible for getting that on your own. Now, for commercial vehicle insurance, if that's what you mean, it depends. Some companies will allow you to get your own insurance through a commercial carrier. Some companies require you to purchase their insurance. Now, this is all new to us also. I can tell you what's happened with us. We went through a company called CIS, Commercial Insurance Solutions. They do a lot of commercial insurance for expediters. I think probably a lot of companies, but it's one of the bigger ones that's known for good rates on insurance. I think they pretty much, I think they go through Progressive, really.
Yeah,
is what it is, Progressive Insurance. But we obtained our own liability insurance and non-trucking liability insurance.
Vehicle damage.
Yeah.
Not uninsured motorists.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Right. So we purchased that on our own. Now our carrier, they also offer an insurance. So we could have purchased our insurance through them, but they were about double the price that it was going to be going through CIS.
Panther did actually make us get their non-trucking insurance. Our insurance was cheaper for uninsured motorists, vehicle or damages. You know, if our truck is damaged, Panther's insurance don't cover that. Mm-hmm. They only cover the cargo insurance, liability part if I'm at fault, or but if
when we're on a load, though,
when we're on a load.
Yeah. I would definitely check your options for insurance if you're looking to get insurance, but check with the carrier first.
Yeah,
I mean, some carriers may require you to go through them for the insurance.
Find out their requirements and what they need. That's hope that answers your question. Yeah. Well, one of the health or vehicle insurance.
Our next question comes to us from Kathleen. She actually asked 2 questions. The first question is, you've mentioned that you drive 62 miles per hour. Why not 61 or 63? Did you figure out somehow that 62 is the perfect speed?
Well, for us, we want our goal is to keep our RPMs as low as possible. The way this truck is spec'd, if you tried to set it at 60, 61, and you hit maybe kind of a larger overpass, it's going to downshift into 9th gear, and then back up into 10th once you're going down the hill, and just that back and forth would diminish your fuel mileage, or the constant downshifting and upshifting would not help fuel mileage. So right at 62, that was plenty of power for the truck to get us up over these hills and down them. It's kind of the sweet spot we found for this truck. We really don't like driving slow, but we're doing it for the fuel mileage, of course. Yeah.
Her second question is, why aren't there any loads coming out of Arizona, my state? Well, Kathleen, we are in your state right now as we're doing this Q&A, I must say, and it is a beautiful day today. I think it's 70 degrees and it's awesome. We're in southern Arizona right now. But to answer your question, it's not that there aren't any loads coming to or going out. There are loads that come to and come out of Arizona. The problem is there's not a lot of manufacturing in Arizona. There's loads that come in and out of Phoenix, some Tucson, Nogales, kind of coming across the border to and from the border. So it's not that there aren't any. There are. They're just kind of spread out and few and far between.
They are few and far between.
You know, we've come and delivered here before, and we've gotten a load out. We've delivered here before, and we've had to deadhead to California to get a load out.
It's a big hit or miss.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's population in Arizona ain't really huge. You know, there's not a lot. I think Phoenix is your guys' only big city. You know, everything else is Tucson, Flagstaff, you know, small cities like that.
And a lot of expedited freight is automotive parts. That's not the only thing that we do, but
that's a big part.
It's a big part of the expediting.
70% of expediting is probably automotive. So.
Yeah, so that's why there's not a lot that comes in or out. But again, it's not that there's none, it's just very little.
Yeah.
Next question comes to us from David.
Hey, David.
Which is one of our really great friends we've met up with a couple times. He's from California. I was wondering if a solo owner-operator could make a decent living out of California. I know California has a lot of regulation that just about buries most owner-operators and small companies.
That's a good question. You know,
very good question.
We go out to California quite a bit. A lot of times when we go out there, we're turning down loads that go up to Oregon, Washington, Utah, you know, short kind of runs that would put us in bad areas that aren't really good for us. When we're in California, we're looking for a load to get us out of California. We don't mind doing a little local one here and there, but it might be a niche somebody can get into. I don't know how hard it would be. I know I've heard of Panther having a guy that he lives in Houston. He does all kinds of local Texas runs for them. That's all he does. He does not leave the state of Texas. He does runs up to Dallas, out to San Antonio, down to Laredo, down to, Houston to Houston, Dallas City. Anything short that most of the other drivers like us don't want to do, they have this guy over here that does that. So, getting into a niche like that in California, I think might be something to look into, You would definitely want to own your own truck. Yeah, finding an owner that has something like that might be kind of hard, It would take a lot of calls, but even getting your own authority. If you have your own authority, you can still do loads for companies like Panther, but you can also do loads for other companies. You're not just restricted to Panther. Yeah, you have to get signed up with Panther. You have to send them all your insurance, all your information, get set up on some kind of tracking device on your cell phone. I know there's apps out there, but basically you'd be bidding your own loads. But I know there's a lot of freight in California that a lot of expediters just aren't willing to tinker with,
Or even just the whole West Coast in general.
The whole West Coast,
said, Oregon, Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's a bunch of times we've been up in...
Well, we did the last time we were up in Seattle. We picked up a load in Seattle and took it down to LAX.
Down to LA. Last time we were in Sacramento, we had a load offer picking up in San Jose going to like Redding. We weren't interested in doing that. That wasn't something we were interested in doing. But... a solo guy out there that's running those kind of freight, you might be able to make something work like that. And that goes for everybody all over the country, If you're in a state that has freight, but it's not really the typical freight that most people are going to want to do, you might be able to get a niche going. New York area. A lot of people don't like going into New York. Right. Somebody lives over there in the New York area and wants to stay regional, solo guy, you could probably get something going in that area. It's definitely something it would take some work and research on, and getting set up with these companies and letting them know that you're out there and ready to do those loads for them,
Our next question comes from John. Do you guys happen to know somewhere to find a good person to drive with? Seems to be the hardest part for me. So John, I think you're talking about finding a teammate to drive with. The best bet is going to be, you can look on Expeditors online in their classified ads. People post ads on there all the time if they're looking for a team driver to drive with. Also, join some of the Facebook groups. Transportation Life has a Facebook group. There's a lot of people on there. Expedite Nations. Just type in the search on Facebook, Expediting, Expediter, and it will bring up some of the groups. Some are better than others. You just kind of got to fill them out. But, a lot of people sometimes post on there if they're looking for, someone to drive with, a teammate in your area. Of course, you want to get somebody that's going to be in the same area as you, which would be the best thing, because then home time is easier. If you get somebody, if you live in California and your teammate lives in North Carolina, trying to work out home time is going to be a disaster. So you want to find somebody in your area that's
finding teammates is a hard thing.
It is, and somebody you get along with. That's really
there's
hard.
So many things. Yeah, you have to get along with them, be in the same area. It's something we've never had to deal with of finding a teammate. We see people post ads on Facebook groups that, hey, they're looking for someone to team with, but then I'll read their stipulations: must be willing to drive night times, not talk to me, don't want to talk to you, and when you're on your time, you staying back. They don't want you sitting up front talking with them, or just some funny stipulations. So I can see how that's a hard thing to find someone you can get along with.
You can mesh with,
Try finding a friend that maybe at home that, hey, try to talk them into expediting too. I know a couple people out here that do that. They're just friends, they're from the same hometown, and they decided to team together. So we feel your pain though. We know it's hard.
Yeah, definitely.
I had trouble putting up with this crackhead.
We have our
We'll talk about that in part 3.
Part 3 of our Q&A answers. Our next question comes from Abigail. How do you guys deal with fatigue on the road? how often can you stick with the same driving schedules? Example, with one of you driving days and the other driving nights. How do you guys adjust to accepting loads when you both have been awake all day because you're not tired, but then get a load with a late night pickup and have to drive all night? That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. You have to be prepared for those late night calls. You do.
Definitely.
You do. When you're sitting waiting for loads, if it's typically your time to be sleeping, you should at least be trying to get a nap, getting your sleep in when you're supposed to. Keeping a steady schedule, I think, once you get into it, it's really good for you.
Yeah.
Finding your schedule, it took us...
That takes the longest.
That took us the longest to find what schedule worked for us.
Works best,
we changed around, I was driving till 5 in the morning, she was driving till 5 in the afternoon, and we just kind of tinkered with that.
Yeah, we changed up the times a little bit, and finally I think we're at a place where we're comfortable with. It seems to work the best for us, for when we have to be up, when we don't have to be up, when we're picking up, when we're delivering. It's working out really well. We've been doing this about the last year, I think. So
and what we do is we do a 1-to-1. So I am 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. Heather is 1 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now, I typically go to bed right at 1 p.m. Then I'll usually wake up around 9 or 10 o'clock. And then Heather, she lays down around 5, 6 o'clock and gets up at 1 o'clock. So typically we spend most of our times together between 10 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when we get to spend our times together. That's typically when our pickup and drop-offs are, so we can be up with each other and assist with anything if we need to. And that's really helped us stay on a sleep schedule, a constant sleep schedule, keeping that same sleep schedule.
I will say it is difficult sometimes, when you are sitting for a couple days to stay on that schedule. We don't really, if we're sitting, we don't necessarily stay on that schedule, if we're not on a load, but we still try to go to, I'll try to still go to bed at a decent hour.
9 o'clock,
we have to get up,
10 o'clock she'll go to bed and still get up early,
right, so that I'm not wanting to
6, 7 o'clock in the morning versus, so and it's easier for me to stay on the same schedule because I sleep in anyway, so it's like...
You can sleep through anything anyway. So. But also, I do want to add, when you're first starting out, that's the hardest, roughest time.
Yeah.
When you're the most tired and the most irritable, because you're trying to find that sleep... you're not
schedule.
Used to sleeping in a truck, a
bouncing moving truck.
Sleeping, it's just the first few months is rough, but... once you get into a pattern, and you just got to try different things, that's what we did until you find what works for you. And that's not to say that we may change it up again in the future.
This is how we deal with fatigue.
Coffee,
lots of coffee,
and we are pretty vigilant about stopping every 2 to 3 hours.
Get up,
get out of the truck,
stretch your legs, do some exercises, some stretches.
You need to be stopping those anyway to do your
circulation,
safety check.
Get out, walk
helps.
Around the truck, stretch your legs.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That really, really helps with fatigue. That we rarely ever have fatigue now, versus when we first started. We were trying to learn how to do this. So.
Yeah.
Lots of coffee and get out and do some stretching,
trial and error.
Stretch your arms, get some good stretches, kick your legs up, do some what are they called? Burpees?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do what you can, get that blood circulating.
Absolutely. I hope that answered your question. Well, that's all we have for you on this Q&A video. Thank you to everyone who sent your questions to us about expediting. We do still have some questions that we are going to answer in a third Q&A video, and they're going to be mostly on personal questions we were asked about us.
Yeah.
So be watching for that. That'll be coming out in the future.
Couple weeks,
yeah. So thanks again, everybody, for asking and sending us your questions. We hope that our answers have helped answer your questions and have helped anybody possibly wondering the same questions you asked. If there's anybody that has any more input on any of the questions we answered, please leave it down in the comments below. I'm sure those folks looking for answers to those questions will appreciate it. We appreciate it. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you got some information out of it and it helped you. And thank you so much for watching and subscribing. Until our next video, peace, love, and expediting.